Hello. Oh, I guess it's just us.
It's just us.
It's just us. Okay. In case people don't know and people are watching, my name is Kishi Bashi. I'm the co-director of Omoiyari. This is my other co-director, Justin Taylor Smith.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, so today we're just gonna do a 6-minute clip of Omoiyari, which is a feature-length documentary that we've been filming for the past 4 years, all around. This one actually features Hard Mountain and our very own Erin Aoyama in the film very beautifully. She's so wonderful, and this one features Hard Mountain. And we've been to other places like Jerome, Rower. We filmed at Manzanar, and
some of the assembly centers.
And it's kind of like this lifelong thing. Sorry, it's just like a 3-year-long project. And so, yeah, so we'd like to share this. Some disclaimers is that this isn't the final edit at all. This is a very rough, polished thing, but you can kind of get the style and feel. And what we're going for is really an authentic, like emotional capturing of the location, and also a lot of modern context. Like, how does Erin feel about it? How do I feel as somebody who's not connected to the incarceration? How can we learn from this experience alongside telling the history, of the injustice? So.
Yeah, and the cool part about this little clip is that I don't think we've really screened much of Omoiyari for anybody. Kay and I have been to the last two pilgrimages, and last year Kay did the Violent Tsunami music video, which is more of like an animated artistic piece, and we were like really excited to maybe show parts of the documentary, but like as we've gotten deeper into it, we've just been revising. So this is actually like version 9 I think it's one of the stronger scenes in the film. But we're really excited to hopefully share the full film this fall. We're working with a brilliant editor right now. I was editing the film for a long while, and we recently were able to bring on a much more experienced doc editor, Eliza Benora, which has been huge for us to kind of bring this thing full circle, because it's definitely, as most of you all know, it's a very complex story and a very complex history. But we're really excited to share this little snippet.
Yeah, never before seen. There's a couple of people who are listed that are not listed. One, of course, is Dakota Russell, who's the executive director of the Hard Mountain Interpretive Center, and Kei Sakai from Bainbridge, who's one of the people we interviewed. And so, Justin, let's remember to put their names on the edit next time.
Well, I think their names, Dakota and Kay, I think their names are actually, because this is like in the middle of the film.
I know.
Actually intro before the scene.
I was giving you a hard time, man. Anyways, never before seen. I hope you guys enjoy this. Be nice to us. We'll answer whatever questions you have afterwards. So. Can we roll the clip?
After being on a train for 3 days and 2 nights, we didn't know where we were going. And even after we arrived at our destination, we didn't know where we were at. Sagebrush, tumbleweed, acres and acres of just flat desert. Barracks, and we were never told how long we were going to be there or anything.
The War Relocation Authority hastily created 10 concentration camps in some of the most remote regions of America's interior. Sequestered from the West Coast and under constant armed guard, they were continuing to be viewed by the public as the enemy.
It was a very miserable sight there, just rows and rows of tar paper shacks there.
Gee, what a desolate place this is, No cities, no homes.
I'll always remember the sound of the gate clang. Yeah, I knew. and knowing that you were really being interned.
Within weeks, they built a place for, 11, 12, 14,000 people, which was the third largest city in Wyoming. The alarming thing was that it was completely surrounded by barbed wire, with guard towers, with soldiers and searchlights, with guns, and aimed inside. So I thought, must be some strange people in there.
Heart Mountain was one of the 10 concentration camps that the U.S. government established for Japanese Americans during World War II. This one is up in remote northwestern Wyoming. We are the furthest north of any of the camps, and so consequently the coldest of all of the camps.
Okay. About how many people?
So the peak population of Heart Mountain was about 10,700 people, but over the 3+ years it was open, over 14,000 different individuals lived here at one point. Almost immediately after the incarcerees arrive here, that's when the temperature starts to drop. And these are people who had never experienced a Wyoming winter. If you look around at the walls around us, you'll notice that there is not any insulation in these barracks.
To put them in that kind of bleak situation, did the government see it as a kind of punishment for the population?
I don't think it was necessarily an intentional punishment, but it was a negligence, right? And that's something that you see repeated over and over throughout this story, is that the government just doesn't think about the consequences. It is acting so quickly, and all of its decisions are based on emotion, are based on anger, are based on fear, that they don't think about these very simple issues of, what does a community of 11,000 people need to survive?
My grandmother's name was Misa Hatakeyama. I remember growing up sometimes talking about World War II, and my dad would say something like, Gra, as we call my grandma, Gra was in one of those camps. It was called Heart Mountain. And that name kind of stuck in my head. I could never remember what state it was in, but the name Heart Mountain is so beautiful, romantic sounding. But no one talked about what those names actually meant or what camp actually meant.
Okay, so what we've got here is the full camp roster.
Okay.
So we are looking through about 14,000 names right now. Okay, I think this is it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is her.
Wow.
Misa. And this is her older brother, Kimio. And then her parents, Kisaburo and Yasuji.
So this August 12th, 1942, this is actually the first train in camp. This is the first day that they arrival. And most people who went on that train were volunteers. There were people who had volunteered to come in and sort of set up the camp and get it ready for the people who were going to be following behind them.
So that first train, she was one of the first 500 people here. Wow. What it must have been like to be a 20-year-old girl, living on your own for the first time in college, and then kind of yanked out of that and then put in a place like this. Imagining me halfway through college and what that would feel like. In high school, I remember that was the first time I felt frustrated that I didn't learn about Japanese internment. I remember there was a kind of sidebar in the textbook that we had just about
Hey.
Oh.
Wow, we got the team back together here.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Hey guys.
Hi, Max. Hi, Kay.
Hi, guys.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that cut with us, Justin and Kay and Max. That was cool to see and remember doing those shoots.
I know. It seems like, what was that, 2 years ago that we shot that scene in the bear?
Yeah.
Was it 2 years ago?
It's not, yeah. Some of that's been longer ago, but
Summer of 18, summer of 19, maybe.
Summer of 18. Yeah. Wow. So, how's the movie going?
Good. Yeah, it's we're 2 months into recutting the entire thing. So back in June we had a new editor come on board and started to pick up where Max and I left off. And so we had a wonderful cut all the way from the beginning to like 93 minutes in, and now we're just going piece by piece through all 3 acts, reassembling everything, and really taking like a good look at the story and making sure we're hitting everything properly. It's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a new. I missed that whole first part, but yeah, we have a new editor. We basically all the last money we have, we pumped into an editor to kind of retell the story more in like kind of in a way we haven't before. Basically, focusing more on me and like kind of investing in my personal attachment to the history, so that the viewer would be more, like the person who's not attached would get attached through me and my music. And by the way, this is Max Ritter, our director of photography here. He's why the film is so beautiful. And of course, Justin did all the drone shots. This soaring drone cinematography in other shots. So of course, Dakota.
Yeah, that
And Dakota,
director.
the guy who always lets us come and film and.
Yeah. Yeah, they're constantly sneaking into Heart Mountain without my permission.
Wow. So since you're all here, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the process of creating this film has been like for all of you, and you too, Dakota, because you've really been involved since early days too. I'm thinking back to like that first time we met Max in Karen Ishizuka's living room watching the movie Pilgrimage. To all the way to now, like what has this experience been like of trying to tell this massive story through film, through music? What have you learned? What have some of the challenges been? What have been some of the joys besides spending time with me and Dakota? An obvious joy.
Who wants to take that one? I think we all have different experiences.
I mean, Max was with me from the beginning. He didn't know what he was getting into, when we visited Karen. So you want to start that off, Max? How'd you feel?
Yeah, I think we all got ourselves in way over our heads with this thing. But I think someone like me is a perfect example of, I just didn't know much about this history when I first started, and I didn't realize how much it is similar to things that are going on in current times. And yeah, I think I'm the stereotypical person that needs to watch this film. Like me before making the movie. There's just so much that we can take from all this history and that we kind of glance over because it's so far in the past and everybody lives so in the now and with tunnel vision, so yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is I think we're all really proud of like how we've individually grown as people, and we're trying to share what we've learned with everyone around us. So yeah.
Well put, Max. Yeah, I mean, I think to echo what Max said, when I got, when I called Max to go on the West Coast with Aaron and Kay to kind of visit some of the sites like Manzanar and some of the assembly centers, etc. I had maybe envisioned the film would be about 15 to 20 minutes long. I think that's what Kay and I had talked about. And the more we kind of went down the rabbit hole of how many layers to the story, even after the camps closed and everything that happened after and everything that's happening now, and us trying to connect all of those dots, we really just went down like a crazy rabbit hole. And now the film is like almost 90, probably will be a 90-minute feature length film going all the way to, you know, the assimilation of Japanese Americans in Chicago, which like I have no idea. I grew up driving up to go snowboarding in the Sierras past Manzanar, and I never really knew what Manzanar was. You know, it was kind of, oh yeah, that's like a POW camp, you know, that was there for Japanese prisoners of war during, you know, it was that level of like not knowing that I lived with for probably into my late 20s until I started working on this project and really starting to get just understand and interviewing people and understanding firsthand experiences. And it's great because this group of friends here, like this is like I didn't know Aaron before this. I didn't know Dakota. I've worked with Max for about a decade. Kay and I've known each other for almost 5 years now, but we've made some wonderful new friends. I think through the process, it's been really difficult because when you're, you know, that's our responsibility as documentarians to tell this very personal story for so many people. There's a lot of weight and pressure. And so us getting it right has been something that I think I've lost a lot of sleep over the years. And like I said, we've recut the film many times and we keep finding new footage or new archival stuff or finding a new twist. And so, yeah, it's been a wild ride, but definitely has changed who I am through all of that, you know. And we're almost done. We're almost there. It's got to come out in 2020. It's really important to get this out soon, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, not to put pressure on you, but I think, Kay, when I've heard you talk about sort of the roots of this film and or wanting to tell this story, you talk a lot about the election in 2016 and that was sort of this impetus for you to start thinking about some of these questions about your identity and what it meant to be a person of color in the United States. So do you feel, this is such a leading question, I'm sorry, but is there a certain amount of pressure to get this film out before the next election or around the next election as we're sort of, you know, 4 years later, seeing the results and seeing what the world looks like?
Yeah,
following.
I mean, there was pressure initially, and then I realized, as I don't think we're going to be able to make it before, you know, November 3rd. But I also realized that, let's say that even if you know, Trump lost, he'd still be president until the end of January. So we just got an extension. You know, in my head, how frantic the nation's still going to be. You know. Because all things indicate that, you know, he's going to go out kicking and screaming. So, but I think the kind of film we're trying to make is, you know, is also supposed to stay relevant after, because it's basically the transition in culture that we're seeing in our country now. And so, you know, all these messages are really poised to really speak to people who might not think that society is changing in the way that I think it's changing, you know, and that it's becoming a more minority-centric, like inclusive society. You know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a little bit of pressure. I also realized, really funny, not funny, but the initial impetus was the Pearl Harbor, 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor, which was like 4 years ago, right? And then after Pearl Harbor, of course, the incarceration. And then just the other day, August 6th, was the Hiroshima bombing, which signals the end of the war. You know, and so we've been working on this movie for as long as World War II was for America. So I feel like it feels like a parallel battle, you know, for dominance over this.
Oh my God.
We're not going to go into that one, but you're steeped in it. That's pretty funny. No, and I think you bring up a good point, Kay, that, you know, this is all, sorry, Max, I just muted you. This is, you know, the impetus maybe for your telling this story emerged out of some of the rhetoric we saw in 2016, but also part of this history is that was not new then. It's not going to end if the administration changes. And so that this story is relevant and ever evolving and fluid, but remaining relevant. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, and all of you, the relationship between the music and the album that was Omoiyari and the film, and how those two have kind of worked in tandem or emerged in tandem or not. And Kay, what a Songfilm is and means to you.
Yeah, I mean, initially, like my career is based on making albums, so it came time to do it, and I kind of focused my efforts on it, and I realized that I couldn't express it just through music, and so this is why the film, it's a song film, and it's supposed to be a unified, artistic statement, but I didn't know that movies take 4 years to make, so I released my album last year, and then it's basically the creation of these songs and these textures are in this film, and they're documented in the film. So the album accompanying, and also there'll be a soundtrack album too. There'll be new songs too in the film. It's going to be it's just like a unified statement from me as far as like how I felt in my 4-year journey, my own transformation too, because I learned a lot. I used to be a little shit, before that. Can I say that on this? But I just did.
Too late.
Now I'm a little bit more mature, and I still cuss once in a while, but I feel like it's really brought the best out of me, and I'm like, I'm a middle-aged person. I just can't be playing rock and roll lifestyle forever. Need to. Is that the answer to your question? I can't remember what the question was.
Yeah. No, I was just curious to hear about what a Songfilm is.
Yeah. I made it up. So I made it up. It's a song. It's an album. And it's a film.
For me, it's really interesting because I approach this, of course, from more of a straight history direction, to see how Kay takes it and sort of, it's why it's interesting working with creative people, because to see how he looks at the story musically, or from how Justin and Max look at it from a filmmaking perspective is always really interesting. And I think uncovers new themes and new ideas that when you're looking at it straight from my perspective of history don't always become clear. And I think this film kind of brings some of those some of that subtext up to the front, which is really cool to see.
Thanks, Dakota. Yeah. I think one of the things, Kay, you said early on, or one of the things I've learned is kind of like if you can attach like an emotional, if you can have an emotional connection with history, it's easier to learn that lesson. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do with the film is to pair visuals of what a place like Heart Mountain looks like now versus what it looked like then. That juxtaposition of archival footage versus like literally the landscape. For those who've been to Heart Mountain, landscape in the mountain has not changed. It's just, and fusing those visuals with a musical element can help you. And then the spoken word, right? Aaron, hearing you talk about Gra, or hearing, incarcerees talk about their experience there, that paired with those visuals and then the music, it's hard for me to like watch that and not cry and want to like understand more, or I feel like connected to it. And that's one of our biggest goals, with this film. It's not like a standard Ken Burns, like let's lay out all the facts. It's like we want it to really weave and have moments where a viewer can sit and just like kind of listen to the music and feel the story. So that was a big thing that we've been trying to do differently, I think, than other documentaries, and that Kay's music kind of plays perfectly into.
I think one of my favorite bits of the film, which I don't know, may have been edited out long ago, but that you guys, I remember, recorded in your first trip, is there at Heart Mountain in the Interpretive Center, we have this rock that an incarceree carved a haiku into, and then buried, with the idea that some future archaeologist would dig this up and this would become a relic of the camp, And one of the bits that you shot, I remember, in that first trip is you guys climbing on top of Heart Mountain, and Kay sort of improvised and sang this haiku out into the landscape, which was just such a powerful moment for me to see, this object that so much passion had been, infused into, but that I think of as a static object suddenly come to life again through song.
Yeah, Dakota, actually, I wanted to ask you about that because Kay has done several concerts and talks at Heart Mountain about Omoiyari and about, his work. And I'm wondering how that has shifted or evolved, you know, the way that you think about the history or the way that the museum kind of exists in the community? Because Kay's, you know, done some shows in the barrack at Heart Mountain for, you know, locals in Cody and Powell. So yeah, I'm just wondering how, you know, from a Heart Mountain context, telling the story in the way that Kay has shifted things.
Yeah, and you know, the Barrett concert was another amazing moment from going through this because, of course, we were pushing up against the end of the season when we did that. I believe it was early October, and it was really the first thing that we had done inside of the barracks since we had brought it back to the site. And it wound up being just deadly cold that weekend. And so, you know, as I'm talking about in the film, there's no insulation or anything in there. And again, another really powerful moment because we did several songs, and at some point, you know, Kay noticed that the audience was getting cold and just brought them together in for warmth, you know, to finish up the set there. But it was a really profound experience of being in that space and sort of listening to that music there. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about doing this history and this story, is that it does. There is something that, you know, attracts creative people to it, you know, and these themes resonate, I think, because as Kay mentioned, you know, they don't go away. We see them again still today, and I think that it is really enlightening to me as far as thinking of, you know, how we tell these stories and how we move it forward into the future. And I think that, you know, we're starting to realize at Heart Mountain that the arts is a strong part of that, you know, that we can reach a much larger audience when we sort of embrace this opportunity to work with artists like these guys here. And so it very much has changed our approach in the sense that it's got us a lot more thinking about, you know, how we engage people and what are the hooks that get them in, but also, you know, I don't mean to make it just a hook or make it just a gimmick. I think it is a powerful historical experience, just as coming to the museum is.
That's so awesome. We do have some questions from the audience, which this is a reminder to everyone. If you have questions, leave them in the chat for Kay or for anyone on screen here. So one for you, Kaoru, from Sharon Yamato, who says, does the film still incorporate your identity as Shin Nisei and your Okinawan roots? And then she apologized for the West Coast terminology. Oh, you're muted. Sorry.
I'm muted. Oh, yeah, cool. Hey, Sharon. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with, because, you know, I didn't know the word Shin Nisei until a few years ago when I started hanging out with actual Nisei, you know. And I think, like, it's pretty much central to the film. You know, it's about like how I identify with the Japanese American Incarceration, how I identify with my Okinawan heritage, you know, and then my father's like Yamato side, you know. So it's like, because when we went to Okinawa, you know, there's a whole Okinawa segment where we look into discrimination and how the Japanese military treated the Okinawans during World War II, and how the Americans treated them too afterwards. But yeah, I'll probably get banned in Japan. But it doesn't look too favorably, but the history does not. But anyways, it's I think it's really central, and also it has to do with this kind of bicultural at least, identity that I feel like a lot of people really have exist, you know, in America today, that they've always kind of felt confused about. And as I made this film over the past 4 years, I felt more and more confident that this is a new type of identity that a lot of Americans can have. To be able to speak another language, to look a little bit different, but also be just as patriotic and believe in American, you know, democratic ideals as anybody else, you know. And so I think it's pretty central to the way I feel about how I exist now. It's like, it's okay. I feel like, anyways.
No, and Kay, is that a message that you're hoping audiences will take away from the film, and what is your hope for folks who come see Omoiyari?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple pillars that I wanted really to my viewers, you know, this film to take away. And one is that if you're a minority, that this country is dramatically changing in your favor, and that you'll be more and more inclusive, and society will be, more equal, as we progress. And so keep your hopes up, even though it's tumultuous right now, and the other thing is for like white people, like, is to who really have not touched or are just beginning to understand, Black Lives Matter and minority identity themselves, and to have empathy for that situation or that existence, is to be like, hey, okay, maybe America is changing. Let's give up our old ways. Maybe it's time for me to change, and let's include everybody, and that's kind of like the twofold message that I ultimately want people to walk away with.
Wow. And we have a question from Mia Russell, who asks, are there still plans for live musical accompaniment to the film showings?
Well, the bigger question should be, is there still going to be live music? I've heard, I don't know. I don't think there's yet. Maybe. I don't think. Basically, when people can go to see movies, then maybe, yeah, whatever that's going to be. I think I'll definitely come in.
We could do drive-in.
Yeah, we could do drive-ins. Actually, yeah. Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of films. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm out here in Montana. There's a lot of wide open space.
Dude,
there's a lot of room for drive-in movies. But that was the end. That was the goal when we set out to do this, was to have a musical accompaniment, K performing, or portion of an orchestra performing with picture. At least K. I hope we can still do that. We just have to kind of wait and see. We've got to get the movie done first. But then
that's a great idea. Yeah, it's a great idea. We should do that.
Yeah, drive-ins.
The people playing shows now, they're very expensive though, because the overhead, and they have to like they're kind of expensive for the go deal.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. But Mia, it looks like you planted a seed with your question there.
We're gonna figure it out. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
That's awesome. So also I want to be aware of the fact that our session right now is the very last session of Tadaima, which is this 9-week long, community virtual pilgrimage that we've been learning more about histories. We've been having conversations with our elders and with youth, and we've been, thinking about what it means to be Japanese American, or what it means to learn Japanese American histories, what it is to be Nikkei, and how we sort of connect to communities all over the world. And I'm also very aware of the fact that a big part of Omoiyari, or at least my part in Omoiyari, has been centered around pilgrimages and centered around, the Heart Mountain pilgrimage in particular. And so I'm wondering for you, Kay, but then for all of you also, in what ways does this film represent a pilgrimage to you of sorts, or what does that idea of pilgrimage even mean? What does it come to mean over, the last 4 years that you've been working on this movie? Yeah, take that wherever you want.
Maybe I can start. Yeah, for me, I've never been like an activist or even really meditated on much. As far as like, seriously, I've just been a musician who just plays shows, and maybe that in providing entertainment or connecting with people is a way of meditating for myself. But I think pilgrimage to pay honor to to a history of, is something is absolutely new to me. And I think there's a certain spirituality in everybody, and my spirituality has always been music, and I think now that I realize the humanity of how music connects, now this pilgrimage makes even more sense, like in my heart, so I've changed a lot, I think.
In a lot of ways, like what you said about this film kind of like resembling a pilgrimage. Right now, just a little, it's not a super spoiler, but the ending of Omoiyari right now, more or less, will take place at Heart Mountain at the pilgrimage, with kind of just more or less watching the community like celebrate, even though this was a really dark time and a sad time, celebrating, like coming together and then sharing it with the next generation, and sharing it with even people that aren't connected to it, like myself. And we end the film in Heart Mountain really just like as this celebratory kind of like, this is the next chapter. Here's a group of people that have like dealt with this trauma, and they're coming together, they're talking about it. And I've loved every year that we've been able to come out it's such like a memorable time to hike the mountain. And last year, Kay, you brought your parents, which was really cool because obviously your parents are born in Japan, right, and have really no connection to the incarceration. So that was super cool to see them, as Japanese Americans, looking at this history and even Solo like coming into the museum, and then your dad and Solo, your dad playing saxophone on top of Heart Mountain, and like it was just like a really I've always loved coming to the pilgrimages, and so there will be a really wonderful scene that's kind of towards the end that goes to Summer of 42, which is that song that you wrote, which more or less is about a love song that would have been maybe at one of the camps during like a warm, hot summer, potentially in Wyoming.
Yeah.
I was told that's set at Heart Mountain. Yeah. We play him in that one.
I mean, my dad was like, my parents, when we're staying out in Heart Mountain, they're like, because you see part of the desert, what they're talking about, right now there's irrigation now, but there wasn't at the time, right? So it was just like this desolate. There's parts of the other side of the mountain where you drive around, and you get a real feel for how hard it was, and how like it's a kind of how challenging it was. But then I think like about being positive, in these celebrations. I think and staying positive in general is like, I think a lot of what inspires me is like the humanity in the incarcerees, and how they've made the best for themselves and their children, to shield them from this experience. And I think to me that's like the story that we really focus, because it's like you can be angry, you should be angry at things now, things that are really causing harm now, and like how this was related to it. But being angry about something 75 years ago is a little bit more challenging, and for me, like, it's almost like unnecessary. It's like it's something that we should just really empathize with, feel how bad it is, and then like apply it to our modern day experience and how to help people. So, and the pilgrimage really did help kind of create that sense of like what it actually was like back then. I encourage everybody to go to pilgrimages.
Yeah, and I did a session yesterday where we were talking about the meaning of pilgrimage and legacy, and I think this has come up a lot, especially this last week. And Karen Ishizuka and her son Tad Nakamura were talking about pilgrimage as really a beginning, like a jumping off part, that you don't get to the end of whether it's Tadaima or the Heart Mountain pilgrimage and just sort of go back to your life, but it's sort of that question of like, what do you take with you when you're leaving this pilgrimage, and how are you carrying it with you into, whatever your everyday life looks like. And I think, Kay, as someone who's sort of watched you from, the last 3 years and seen how you've grown in how you talk about these questions and these issues, but then also how dedicated you are to sharing this history with your audiences, which are typically not folks who would show up at a Heart Mountain pilgrimage or who would participate in Tadaima, but you've brought so many folks in through the work, all of you, that you've all done on this film. And I think that's just really valuable. And even though, the film isn't done yet, I think it's something that's already sort of built up so much more of a conversation that, you really used your platform to create, which I'm really grateful for. And just as your friend / witness to a lot of that, it's been really cool to see, where you were on that road trip we did with Nicole and the grad students 3 years ago to now. So thanks. Thanks for that. You're always asking me to talk about how you've grown.
Thanks, Mom.
No. Yeah. Okay. So what have I not asked you all about that you want to share about the film, or the process of telling this story and putting this all together?
Well, if people still, am I muted? Can you hear me?
No, you're good.
Okay. I mean, if people want to keep following us, we do have a website. It's probably reversed.
That's upside down.
Oh,
no, flip it upside down.
Oh, okay. Oh, is it
there
right?
We
is
go.
It reversed? There you go.
No, it's good.
Shameless plug. So basically, if we still are in need of like support, so if you're interested in supporting us, you can go to the website, and you can actually make a tax-free donation. Can I plug this? A tax-free donation, if you want to. So We always need support. Yeah, basically, it's like we want to make this film as beautiful and as like compelling to the non-informed person. You know, we want somebody like who sees the title card on Netflix to just like check it out and then like watch the whole thing. You know what I mean? That's like our ultimate goal. You know, so in order to do that, we need to kind of Hollywoodize it a little bit. You know, so. We're gonna put some animations in there. And of course we have a very sexy editor, edit style. He's gonna turn it into a really, exciting piece of work. And then, so any support would be most welcome. And yeah, we really hoping to finish this year. Sure.
We're really close. We're really close. I've been working daily with our, it's not daily because most editors like to kind of just like be left to their business and do their thing. But we catch up, once every couple of days. And I think one of the biggest things I've struggled with, not having done a documentary like this before. It's so funny. I come from Max and I met through working on skateboard and snowboard and surf films. How removed from like American history. And I think for both of Max and I being kind of like outside like your classic white privilege like type filmmaker, folks, like when Kay talked about doing this film, I was just like, I didn't want anything to do with action sports for that time. I was just like, I want to do stuff that actually can help tell stories and help people learn. And yeah, I think through that process, I thought I could do it initially, and then getting into the editorial process, I was like completely overwhelmed, and I would be lying if I haven't burnt myself out like each summer for the last since we started in 2017 until now. But I'm really confident, like we're for the first time in the 3.5 years we've been doing this, the structure is good. The bones are there. We've got, like I said, the whole history of the incarceration. We're going back to like immigration and Commodore Perry first opening up like trade with, Japan, like these insanely crazy, like little facets of history that all lead to these like events happening. And so we're getting there. We're almost there. We're gung-ho on getting this done this fall. And I can confidently say that we're going to get there. Lots of polish is needed. And yeah, Aaron, it's so great to have you featured in the film. As someone, because, I think when you were starting this journey also a couple of years ago, you were really starting to get into like researching your own family tie to it, right? Which is cool to now see you've evolved and learned and grown.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're almost there.
Well, and while we're making shameless plugs, I do want to know we're still planning to have all of you guys out at Heart Mountain Pilgrimage 2021. So everybody mark that on your calendars for the end of July next year. And hopefully we'll be able to have a screening of the film and talk back with all of these folks.
Yeah, if anything, we'll do the drive-in idea.
Yeah, we've got a drive-in, so we'll just take that over.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, I'm up in Montana, which is just 3.5-4 hours south of Heart Mountain.
Dakota, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Can you have camping at Heart Mountain? Like RV camping?
We could probably set something up. We could work with our local folks.
Yeah.
Clement, I think, is planning to camp at the parking lot, so.
Okay, I need some shore power, and I'll be there. Just some shore electricity. Yes.
Absolutely. You've got a camper. We can take care of you, okay?
Kay, we do have another question from the crowd, which is about distribution plans for this film. Do you know those yet? Can share them?
No, we don't. It's kind of up in the air now, because if we can sell it to somebody, like a network, then they would have distribution plans itself. But otherwise, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't think we're there yet. It's definitely the kind of thing that we want out as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it's probably what we're looking for is like a direct to streaming, looking at a Netflix, looking at a Hulu, looking at like an Apple Plus, something that is really accessible to everybody. Like something like a platform of that nature would be prime to do. Obviously, right now with film festivals, it's really difficult. Being they're either virtual or it's just they're canceled completely for this year. So we're entering kind of like a completely new world of films, with cinemas being threatened to shut down and all of that. I don't think we're worried. I think we've had some good interest with some great people in the industry that have already done some pretty high level doc work. And we're confident that the film is going to be good enough to be able to get it onto some platform like that. So it's widely shareable. Because really what we want the most amount of eyeballs on this as possible. Something that'll be just, oh yeah, it's right there. So stay tuned. I think we'll probably start updating, like, obviously big thanks to the folks that originally supported this film back like 3 years ago, a lot of K's fans. When we did a Kickstarter, it was Indiegogo actually that we started 3 years ago. So we should probably start doing more kind of periodical updates to be like, hey, this is where we're at, because we kind of went dark for a while and we were really deep in editing. But crossing our fingers on distribution, we'll get
if you've supported us, we're definitely still working on the movie, so don't worry.
Thank you.
If you're gonna pray for Justin. He's gonna have the finishing touches. So if anybody wants to pray for Justin.
Just generally. Wow. Yeah. Well, on that really hopeful note, no, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing that clip with us and letting us sort of bring this into Tadaima. We're looking forward to the film. I'm looking so forward to the film whenever it's done. And just thank you for taking the care and the time to use your talents to tell this story in a new way. I know I'm really looking forward to it.
We're all going to cry a lot.
We're all going to cry. Yeah, we'll all cry. I know Kay has to play a Zoom wedding, so.
Yeah, this guy, I still got a little bit, but yeah.
You got time.
This guy just got married and he's having a Zoom reception with relatives. So.
That's awesome. So you're available for hire for Zoom events.
For donations. You gotta donate to a nonprofit.
Oh, nice.
I guess I could be for hire. I don't know. This is the first one I've done. These guys seem super nice though. I'm just gonna do it. Yeah, just bring
that's
joy
awesome.
Whenever I can. What else am I gonna do? Like watch like Netflix or something?
Yeah, or Tadaima programming. Okay, well, thank you so. Yeah, there's lots of it. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here and sharing this. Thanks, Dakota, for shepherding so much of this film and the history. Yeah.
No problem. It's been a fantastic experience just being this tiniest part of this, but Heart Mountain is really, really glad to and honored to be a part of this project. It's pretty great.
Yeah. And to folks who are watching at home, please tune in to the closing ceremony. I truly cannot believe that we are already at this point, but the closing ceremony in about 12 minutes on YouTube. Stay tuned. And thank you so much for being on this literal journey with us. And thanks, Kay, Dakota, Max, and Justin for closing this out. It's been fun to see you guys. It's been a while.
I know. We miss you. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron and Dakota. Appreciate it.